Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another show, episode 39, coming in hot. I wanted to go over a couple things first before I get started. Shell Shock Music. Shell Shock Music is going to be in Orlando on October 19th. The guys from Anti-Hero Podcast are putting it together. There's going to be some awesome bands, some vendors there, several social media law enforcement influencers and stuff, so check it out. I'm going to put this up there. You can find it on Instagram at shell_shock_music. You can buy your tickets on Eventbrite. If you want to hit me up for tickets, obviously before October 19th, I do have a few that I can hook you up with. So hit me up either through email or through Instagram, however you want. Just say, hey, I want tickets. And if you're going to be able to get to Orlando, let me know. I'll be up there. Friday night, there's going to be a comedy event put on by Failure to Stop and Anti-Hero Podcast. So there's going to be a comedy night, and then there's going to be like a live stream podcast going on. And then Saturday, starting at 2 o'clock in Orlando, is the Shell Shock Music, the show. There's so many bands. I'll put them up. You'll end up seeing a picture during the edit of this, but check it out. Looking forward to it. I'm going to be up there doing photography and stuff for it too. All right. Secondly, I created a Discord. Discord is another social media channel, as if we don't have enough already, but this one has separate chat channels within it that I can talk about upcoming guests, past shows. If you want to ask questions about past guests and stuff, or something maybe that didn't get clarified in the podcast, and maybe I can help clarify it or even connect you with that guest. There's going to be a little channel for events coming up, kind of like Shell Shock. If there's any meetups or anywhere where I'm going to be. And then, if I drop some merch, I got hats coming in, some merch. I'll probably drop it into the Discord first, give everybody first dibs opportunity to grab that merch. So I put the link. It's on my Instagram on the highlights section. You'll see a little Discord, and you just download the app and join the Discord, and we can chat, do whatever, say what's up. So without further ado, let me drop this off. I'm going to start the show and bring on my guest, Nick Hall. So here's the intro.
Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.
What is up? This is Nick Hall, a current police officer, but he has an amazing and tragic story to share, as well as what he's doing coming up, and kind of how he wants to sort of influence and work with people dealing with some of this sort of stuff. So, what's up, Nick? How are you, bro?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
So I mean, let's just kick this off. You way back it was in 2000. Well, let's talk. Currently, you're a police officer, and then you've worked for a few other agencies. When did you start as a police officer and stuff?
So I went to the academy back in 2014. I started at Cocoa PD. I did 4 years there. It was, I don't know if you're familiar with Central Florida. It was a high crime area, a lot of fun. Then I ended up going to the local sheriff's office here. Wanted to do more career advancement stuff, did that. And in the midst of all that, my family started growing. Kind of realized what was more important, being home for the family life. So ended up coming to the current agency that I'm at to spend more time with the family, be closer to home, better retirement. So total, I've been doing this now about 9.5, almost 10 years. So it's
Okay.
been, it's been fun.
Yeah. I mean, I spent 4 years while I was in college up in Central Florida, and traveled through Cocoa to go to Cocoa Beach, or take take 520 Highway 520 back to 95 to get home, to get back to South Florida. And I know I've seen that there's a lot of action there. It's a good place probably to start out as a young guy.
Yeah.
And then And then, as you said, you kind of refocus on some of the things that you want to do throughout your career, and you were able to do that. So that was cool. Um, well, I mean, let's get right into it. What were some, you started out in Central Florida, you grew up in Central Florida in Orlando. What were your dealings with law enforcement, and how did this kind of start off?
So for me, I was born in New York. My parents were separated when I was young. So eventually, me, my mom, and baby sister at the time, we moved down to the Orlando area in 2000. I was about 8 years old. And this one particular weekend, a guy from down south who I don't know how close you're familiar with like Pompano Beach area.
Yep.
So he ended up robbing a
Pompano
convenience
loves to
store.
travel across the state of Florida, and Pompano loves to branch out across Florida.
Yeah. So this guy, he ends up his career criminal, ended up getting out of prison a little early. His game plan when he gets out is rob a convenience store when the Brinks truck would come, drop money off. So he ended up killing one employee and shooting another. He flees the scene up to Central Florida. At that point, there's a BOLA put out for him. Orange County Sheriff's Office, they locate him at the time, but I don't know what Manning was back then. So they were kind of waiting until they had more units before they, attempted to make contact with him. So eventually, the deputies they do a traffic stop on him. He ends up shooting a deputy in the leg, and he ends up fleeing the scene there to my aunt's house, which is where me and my mom and sister were at the time. Jamaican family, so a large family, a lot of cousins in the house at the time. And it was
Yeah.
just one Saturday morning. I was watching cartoons, and next thing you know, some guy just kicked in the door holding a revolver. And the next thing you know, he's holding our family hostage.
Whoa, jeez. And how old were
Yeah,
you at that time?
I was 8 at the time, and my
About eight.
sister, she was almost 1. She wasn't 1 yet.
Oh man. Yeah. And that's, to speak to today's day and age, you don't find that very often, true real hostage situations, at least in my 18 and a half years of experience, where additional people are there. But I know in my city that recently we have had one, and they're terrible, they're tormenting. Nothing in TV can probably explain or portray what's going on, and how that kind of feels for you. So what was your memory of that situation?
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time uh, for me. That was the first time I remember just praying and like talking to God, thinking like, "Hey, I don't know what's going on here, but like, can you please just keep us safe and get us through this?" And
Of
you
course.
know, everybody has those core those senses where like you remember the smell or like the feel, a touch of something. And to this day, after being around guns and having a gun at work every day, there was a time where the suspect, he had put the revolver to the back of my head as he was escorting us into one room in the house, and I remember it feeling like the coldest gun I ever felt. Like it felt like if you left a gun in the freezer and you just put it to the
Right.
back of your head. I just remember feeling like a cold circle touching me, and it was definitely one of those like the biggest moment of like I don't know what's going on. I don't have any control of what's going on. I don't know what to do. I'm just waiting for everybody else to finish doing what they're doing, and hopefully no one dies. Um, my cousin, who at the time I think is early 20s. So I guess backtrack. The house is primarily full of females. Mom, aunt, uh, teenage cousin that's a female, and then my sister, and then another baby cousin. There was one
Uh,
male adult, and I think he perceived him as a threat, so he actually ended up shooting my cousin in the face. And you know, once again, through the grace of God, he's okay. The bullet
oh
like
wow.
traveled through his it traveled through like his vertebrae, went out his back, um, and he was able to crawl out of the house and get help. So at this point, law enforcement's outside. I just don't know how many are out there, but they did follow him to the house. Um, and then shortly after, my aunt, the suspect told my aunt to go get a phone. She ended up leaving the house as well at that time, and the whole standoff ended up lasting 50 hours. So we were all pretty much held hostage in the master bedroom closet as time went on, and it didn't it didn't feel like 2 days. Looking back on it, it really just felt like one long afternoon of
Uh-huh.
just complete chaos.
Wow. Wow. And so this guy just had no plan, didn't know probably what he was doing, and was just making
Yeah,
it up as
no,
he went. And he's just scared,
pretty
and
much, and
obviously terrorizing you guys through
yep.
that whole thing. Back on your cousin, is he? You said he survived and he's well. I mean, did he was he disabled from it? You said vertebrae, or was is
I
he?
know he went
Yeah.
through like physical therapy for it. Looking
Uh-huh.
back and like seeing it happen, it looked like he got shot like through his mouth, and
Oh my
um,
god.
but it like I said, man, it just ended up going through the back of his neck, and he's not paralyzed or anything. Regular guy,
Wow.
so like he's living life.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. All right. Yeah. So what? Like, how did it go through, or like, what else? What else do you remember? Or what else happened from that?
So after, due to the time frame going on, the hostage negotiators they wanted to bring us food, and the suspect, I remember, ironically, it was donuts that they wanted to bring us, and the suspect,
It's
and just
2000.
yeah,
Police officers weren't as refined as we might be
yeah,
in today's day and age, but yeah. Okay.
yeah, food and water, right? Let's bring donuts.
Yeah.
That works for cops, should work for everybody else. So.
Should work for
Um,
everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. So they wanted to bring us donuts. The suspect, he ended up telling me, he's like, hey, you go get the food. And I just remember being a little kid and I was like, I don't want to do it. And I told my mom to go get it. And that was the last words I spoke to my mom once she ended up going out of the closet to go get the food. I just remember hearing gunshots. And shortly after, the suspect, he lets me take my baby sister. He covers my head and he escorts me out of the house. And at that point, we're in the back of an ambulance, and they ended up taking us to a nearby area wherever they were doing the command post. And I just remember asking, like, where's my mom? Where's my mom? And I
Oh my
remember a
god.
female telling me that the cops accidentally shot my mom, and ended up killing my mom instead of the suspect.
Yeah. When I read that explanation when you sent it to me, I was utterly stunned. Tragic and terrible. Did did they ever? There's so much now to unpack in this. Now that that part of the story is explained. Did they ever explain to you what they were shooting for, or what their manner and thought process was in that firing or shot firing?
Uh, being young at that age, I don't remember anybody really getting into detail with me about like
Yeah.
how she died. Just not till getting older than realizing and seeing what was going on. Um, the SWAT team's game plan originally was have the suspect go get the food, and they'll take the shot once he comes out. So back then, so this happened in the unincorporated area of Orange County. So initially, it was
Okay.
Orange County Sheriff's Office SWAT that was out there. Due to the long standoff, they got relieved by Orlando Police Department SWAT. And
Right.
when they relieved them, it was like, hey, we have a house full of black people and we have a white male suspect. So they're mainly just looking for anybody that's white to take out at that point. But the problem was everybody in the house was light skinned. I was the only dark one there at the time. So like my mom's skin was almost about the same shade as the suspect. One
Oh,
son,
okay.
Yeah. So when she went to the garage door to go get the food, they they just saw like a white hand through the door, and they ended up taking a shot without any facial recognition. So once they took the shot, suspect was on the phone telling them, "Hey, you ended up shooting the mom," and he was distraught, going through like the whole emotional roller coaster that he was on. So then he ended up escorting me and my sister out, and it wasn't too much long after to where he ended up killing himself as well.
Yeah. Wow. Um, yeah, I mean, I spent 9 years doing negotiation or hostage negotiation or crisis negotiation on the team. It's a, for my city, it's a part-time unit. It's not anything full-time. This being back in 2000, I can't really speak to what, like you were saying before, like manpower or how teams were broken up in that scenario. But yeah, I mean, those are when you're going to reveal people or move your assets inside the house, or your victims, move them around or ask for things, or do any kind of a transfer of, we're going to throw a cell phone or whatever. There's a lot of communication that's got to go on between the negotiator and that suspect, because you don't want the most horrible outcome of that situation. You want, everybody safe. You want everybody, um, you know, even if it ends up being the suspect safe, you want the communication, you want the handoff to be done properly,
Yeah,
because God forbid, like something like this actually happens. And so it did, um, to you guys in 2000. That was okay. So that's what they're going for. A Jamaican family, mostly black, maybe light skin, and then a white guy inside there. Terrible. I'm very sorry for that. That's horrible. Um, so we've already. I mean, have you, in now your adult life, been able to do it? Have you done any research on that or pulled any? I mean, I don't even know if public records would be available at that point. Have you ever done anything, or did any of your adult family at the time do any of that kind of stuff?
so currently still waiting on a public records request through the county and the city, which is it's kind of old, so you can't do it online. But I
Yeah.
realize it's like pulling teeth trying to pick up something from the archives that far. Um, I know as I've gotten older, like I've searched it on the internet as much as I can just to see like what articles said, and then you really can't. It's funny because each article will have some sort of information wrong, but back then, it's the same back then as it is now. We just want to get information out first instead of
Yes.
it being right. So I'd read things where it was like, okay, well that no, that didn't happen like that, or a main one was I read something saying that an 8-year-old boy defecated himself, and I was like, oh, I did not shit myself. I
of all
remember I
of all
remember
things.
peeing my pants. Yeah, I remember peeing myself out of fear, but I was like, I did not poop. Just little minor,
It's,
yeah, minor
that,
things like that.
of all things, I mean, that's very annoying and very frustrating to have to
Yeah,
read that. That Oh
yeah,
yeah, no, it's to to and again, this is 24 years ago, to share, public information officer or something else that I did, to be able to get those stories consistent and know that the news is gonna the fill in holes. They're gonna fill in holes with
yeah.
what a neighbor said, what they think happened. Sometimes stuff off the record might get said between the information officer and the reporter, and they decide to sort of draw around what was said to kind of,
Hmm.
innuendo. But yeah, it's to have been there first person and live through it, and to read that stuff now in archives is amazing. And I really hope someday you're able to get those original type police reports and after action reports and explanations, um, to help with closure and sort of, um, and then with your current now knowledge of the industry, of the field, and what you're doing. So how do you make it out of a situation like that in society as a young man, as a true young man. Um, maybe the only benefit to it might be that you were 8 years old, so your outlook on life may not have been as seasoned as maybe a teenager would have. But tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, so at that point, after a year of that incident, I still lived with my aunt in Orlando at the time. Then I ended up coming over and living with my dad and my stepmom. And, there was some counseling they tried to put you through. It really, I remember specifically not wanting to talk to anybody about it when I was younger. And as I started getting older, started having, learning about having a relationship with God. I think that it helped kind of give me healing and closure with it, because originally I blamed myself for it a lot of the years, because I thought I was the one that left the garage door open when he came through the garage door. So I had that kind of
Oh,
going through my head for a while. And as I got older, kind of just realizing like, hey, everything happens for a reason. And you're one of the sayings that I like to use is you're exactly where you need to be when you need to be there.
okay.
Because growing up, it didn't make me want to get into law enforcement. It's really kind of, it was just like one of those where this happened to me, but I don't see myself wanting to do any of that. And my dad too, at the time, he was retired NYPD.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it ended up, it didn't make me think, oh man, I want to go in and do that kind of stuff. It just was really something that happened to me, and I was just kind of learning, going through it, of like not having a mom and just having a stepmom, where she was there from since day one. So like the transition kind of, it wasn't too rough. Like she was with my dad when that happened. They actually saw it on the news while it was happening, because the weekend that it happened was on my brother's birthday weekend, and they were actually going to come over that weekend. We are going to spend time together, and unfortunately, my mom ended up dying on my brother's birthday. So
Oh my God.
yeah,
After 50 hours of torment and struggle and probably one of the highest level crisis type events you can be involved in. Um, so yeah, so you eventually kind of worked through it. You found some faith, or you found faith to be able to rely on and stuff like that. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm just, I'm just still amazed you know, at the story and what could happen. Um, did, did, did they ever bring you in for any kind of, victim advocacy or anything like that with Orlando or Orange County at the time?
I don't know. They probably did. Like I don't remember the umbrella of the people that tried to speak to me at the time. I mean, my family, they could tell you more than what I remember. They would say, like, anytime someone would try to talk to you, you would just start screaming no and like just run away. So I don't know how often it happened. I just know they did try, but it wasn't really working at the time. Especially,
Uh-huh.
I was going into third grade that following year, and I just remember most of the time just like crying in class and then kind of running out of class, and then it really, it was, I don't know what would trigger it, but just like emotions were just kind of like up and
Yeah,
down all over the
of
place
course. I mean,
initially.
so school can kind of suffer in that aspect as well, like
Yeah.
studies, grades, frustration, because what we would think, from because like this is a story from TV. This isn't real life. This is a story from TV that you'd see, like I can't believe that anybody would have to live this, and it's an amazing story. Um, but and you would see someone just end up spiraling down the hole, and you haven't. So that's a huge accolade to you, and kudos to you for being able to, you know pull yourself out of that. And the negativity that can brew from all that kind of stuff is insane. And I have a lot of tremendous respect for that. Um, so, so you move in, so say you're, now you're, a teenager coming into a, college or adult years, like where's that go for you?
So for me, really kind of like a C plus student, class clown, high school. Um, End up around my senior year. Well, at first year of college, senior year of high school. Start going through family problems where my dad now found out he was cheating on my stepmom. So as a rebellious 18-year-old, anytime they leave the house, I started getting into drugs, started smoking weed and having friends over doing the whole house party thing.
Yeah.
One time they end up coming home early. They catch the house trashed. They find weed everywhere, and the next thing you know, I'm sleeping in my car. I'm homeless. I get kicked out of the
Oh,
house.
yeah.
Yeah, so
You're 18. It's time to go. Time to be a man.
yeah, and for me, like I didn't know how to say I didn't want to live there anymore. I just knew I didn't want to, and so eventually, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, her parents let me crash with them for like a week after a month of me sleeping in a car. Ironically, around like the UCF area, because all my friends had just went to college. So I figured, well, I could try to couch surf off of my friends that are actually doing something with their lives. And
Yeah. And maybe some would
so
rub
I just,
off or whatever, help you out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I learned I learned the hard way though. I tried spacing out. I had $10 and I bought 10 McDoubles one time, and I was trying to live off of 10 McDoubles on like a couple of days, and that was probably the dumbest thing I ever did. My
Yeah.
stomach was killing me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so I ended up crashing with my girlfriend's family for a week. Uh, my parents find out. My dad's like, "Hey, like, come on, we're going home. Like, you're done with the bullshit." And I was like, "Listen, man. Like, I don't respect you anymore. I don't want to be over there anymore." Um, then he ends up hitting me with two words or two phrases. I was like, "Whoa!" And the first one was, "I wish you were dead instead of your mom." And then the next one he hit me with was, "I'm not even your real dad." And I was like, "What the hell?" So I know, right? So I fact check. I go,
Like, I mean,
I, I read,
that's a front slap and then a
yeah,
back slap too. Like, it's just, wow.
yeah. So I go to fact check, talk to my family on my mom's side, and I was like, "Hey, he said this. Is this real?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's real. We're just waiting for somebody to tell you." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, this is
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
this is this is new information." so so it was a
Dude,
lot.
dude, strong to be strong enough to pull through all those things is insane strength. And so your girlfriend at the time, her family, were they there to kind of support you through that, and those
Yeah,
revelations that were presented to you?
so that week of sleeping on their couch turned into a year till we got our own place together. And at that time, I was working construction with my father-in-law, and I was like, I'm 19, 20. Like, I want to do something more than just doing construction. Like, I want to do the right thing and help people out and kind of make a difference. And initially, I thought about being a firefighter, but I realized I was afraid of heights and I couldn't climb that ladder truck if need be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So at that point, that's when I started looking into law enforcement.
Man. And did you have those thoughts at that time, like bringing up that, like, this was my, you know I had a huge law enforcement interaction, like a huge
Yeah.
negative law enforcement interaction. How'd you turn that around?
So at that time, that's when I started to see it as like, hey, this happened to me. I know what can happen in the job, and I want to be there at least try to help somebody avoid going through that situation, or help, help protect people to keep like
Yeah.
something bad happening like that. At least like from a bad guy breaking into your house, and then also on the law enforcement end of like, hey, this job is a game of inches. And that's when I started to know like, hey, I wanted to be the one to be there if something went down, because I can see what happens on the other end if we make a mistake, and I don't want to make that kind of mistake. I want to help people and save people.
Mm. Do you from the law enforcement side of the story, do you see it differently, or than or do you see it as two different sides, or do you see it as just one situation? Like, how's that? How do you kind
So
of break that down?
so now from like the work side, you can see. I think especially this day and age, we're better at disseminating information quicker, especially on if there's a hot call. Like, we have communication. Like, we have better radios, computers that we can look up like where we're going, where we're heading. Talk to dispatch. I don't know what it was like being a cop in the early thousands.
Yeah.
So I know you're a dinosaur over here,
Ah,
but
stop it. Nah, it's 2005. I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, 2000s,
yeah,
I started handwriting police reports when I started. It
yeah.
was,
See, I couldn't.
or we
Man, I couldn't do that.
or we paid guys with really nice penmanship to write our narratives for us. You had every color of whiteout necessary to you. Or my buddy and I used to buy up Walgreens had like little mini whiteout tapes, and so we would keep that actually in our front pocket, because you needed this like little mini tape, and you kind of just paint over with the whiteout tape. So yeah, okay, so yeah, I
what
guess
was that?
dinosaurs is
What was that diagram? That little the blue thing
the
that
The
you guys
Blue
would
Blitz
have?
template.
There it is, blue blitz. Yeah, see, yep. You know it.
Side story: we just pulled that out of one of the guys' cars because we found some intestine. Well, we got a call of intestines and organs and stuff in a dumpster that we were all like,
Oh boy.
dude, it just doesn't look good. Like, and so crime scene was like, can you send me a picture? And we were trying to teach like some of the trainees, like, listen, when you take a pseudo crime scene photo, like, you need to put something of reference next to it. Either if you're just going to throw down a pen that you're going to lose because
Yeah,
it's covered in intestines and guts.
found a blue blitz.
And so one of the guys pulled out, he's like, my blue blitz, I'm never going to use this again. So I have no problem throwing this in the dumpster with these guts, so that the crime scene and the ME's office could kind of see what it was. Fast forward a day later, after everything was pulled and removed and analyzed, it was goat. Somebody had
Ah,
made a goat, and or made goat for cooking. And I really think there needs to be a better way of disposing organs that are very similar to human. I thought it might
yeah,
have been a
yeah,
pig, because I know pig organs are very similar to human organs. There needs to be a better freaking way than putting them in a garbage bag and zip tying it and expecting no one to smell that disgusting smell after sitting there
yeah.
roasting in the sun. And it was like right next to a daycare and stuff. So it was like, yeah. So,
Oh man,
anyways,
yeah, yeah.
there's my recent Blue Blitz template story. So for anybody that doesn't know, it's a template like this. Sometimes they were green, sometimes they were blue, and they had all different sort of measurements and ways that you could do your diagrams for crash diagrams. We had to draw them out. We didn't have Visio or whatever we use now on our computers to draw out. All right. Well, I ran off on a tangent, so I'm gonna drop
I
a
brought you down
commercial.
memory lane there.
Hey, what's up, guys? Just so you know, we created a Donut Shop Podcast Clips channel. Just clips, meat and potatoes. Some of the best parts of each of our episodes are going to be over on that channel. You can go check it out. Hit the link down in our description. Like, follow, and subscribe. All the stuff over on that channel too. Help us out. All right, we're back. So what we were talking about before we got into Blue Blitz template discussion was old documentation, dinosaur stuff. And so yeah, as you say now, you've got social media that you can look up. You've got probably better documentation of criminal records, additional photos. But if you think like social media, we can go through and find, 10 different pictures of each one of your family members probably to know, hey, the guy's saying that there's a bunch of children in the house, that there's a teenager, that there's, and so, detectives and negotiators would be doing research, kind of creating a dossier of photographs of these are the people that are going to be involved probably. So yeah, kind of what you were saying, that we don't really know in the early 2000 or in 2000, how much or how easy it was to document it. We're not pinging cell phones inside the house that have GPS in them, that are basically saying that we're talking to this guy on his cell phone. His GPS is pinging in the northeast corner of the house. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, the technology that we have in 2024 now with these teams, be it a county team, a city team, a multi-agency SWAT team, is probably leaps and bounds from what they had at that time. Not to defend the decision, but just maybe to rationalize part of what that is. So, as you say, or kind of your answer to my question about seeing it now from different sides of the coin, or is it one specific incident? So I guess there could be a lot of pitfalls to that situation, and why you ended up where you're at. All right, so 18 to early 20s. Now you're kind of invested into getting out of construction and getting into law enforcement to see and make a difference. And in what we all joke that we didn't say in our interview, but probably what we did say in our interview, you actually really kind of meant it with experience. And that's one of the things that, you know, you, with your experiences in life that you've already just explained here, that's kind of some of the things that I tell people, like at recruitment opportunities, or when I worked in the high school, and the 18-year-olds would come to me and say, I want to be a cop. And I'm like, I don't want you to be a cop, because unless they've got experiences like you've had coming to 18, polar opposite to me, you know, I needed life. I needed some life. I needed to go live. I needed to go to college. I needed to, learn all of that, and then come back here. And I did some work for a year, and then I finally made it into law enforcement at 23. But, you had a lot of life and a lot of experience, and especially stuff that we've dealt with, or that we deal with in our careers. Um,
Yeah.
so that was you're able to turn that into a positive. Um, you ever have anything now in today's, in your career now, that you've dealt with, that you're able to pull some of that from?
So for me, most of the time, especially like if I'm working in a high crime area where you see the young kids that think they got to be caught up in the gang life and the drug life, and I try to tell them, I'm like, listen, just because you were put in an environment where something bad is going to happen to you doesn't mean you got to make this your whole life or your whole agenda. Like we know how it ends, where most of these kids are dying before they hit 21, and so anytime if if I can reach out to like some sort of kid and just tell them like, hey, just because you're going through something, either something of your own consequences or something that happened to you that you can't control just because you were in a bad place at the bad time, or wrong place, wrong time. Um, you don't have to let this be who you are. And I think throughout my career, I've always tried to speak at like high schools, doing speaking events to especially the youth, and just when I tell them the story, they're like, "Hey," I've had one where a kid didn't believe me. You could tell he was one of the kids where like when you can find the guy that's peacocking, and he's the one that is normally the one that has a problem. Um,
Yeah.
the kid tried to fact check me. He Googled it as I was telling the class about what went down. I was like, listen, I know where you're coming from, and you can choose to not believe me, but please understand that as I'm telling you this story, I'm hoping it reaches you in a way to where you realize you don't have to you don't have to kind of go through the path that you're about to go down. Especially where I can
Right.
try to relate of like, hey, yeah, I smoked weed, did all this and that, got caught. Um, don't think don't think you need to do this and drop out of high school and then just be outside in the streets. Uh, Luckily for me, having a big family on my mom's side, we that first year where I still stayed with my aunt, I think we all you know we're still kind of there for each other in a way that kind of kept me from wanting to be outside or finding like a negative uh, output on life of like, this happened. Why should I care about anything else? Like, why should I be good? Why should I try to do anything? So I know that's kind of one of the main things that at least through work that I see now, where I can draw from what happened to me to other people.
So you think because of that family that you had available to you, that they, of course, because they're part of it too. They, either they were on
Yeah,
scene or just through being family, they lost family members and had family members injured. So the trauma spread across to all of them. And you think that that them being supportive in that sort of aspect for a young man and for all your cousins and family members, that kind of support really helped you with like a foundation and sort of like what you're saying, that you weren't that you didn't kind of run off and screw yourself up.
yeah. And then I know so by the time when I was making the decision to get into law enforcement, I told I went over there and I kind of told them, I said, hey, I'm looking to do this, and they were kind of like, like, why would you want to be a cop? And I explained to them of you know I want to do the right thing. I want to help people, and I want to be the change that I want to see out there. So instead of just I mean, you see it online where people are just Monday morning quarterbacking anytime something happens, and in the law enforcement realm, I was like, all right, I don't want to sit here and talk about it. I want to be there and do something and kind of serve and help out. And you know, I was I explained it to them. I was pure organic about what my intentions were, and they supported me going through the academy. And looking back now, we're almost 10 years into doing it, and
Yeah,
it it flies pretty quick. So
it does. It does. That's awesome. Do you get to for kind of going through different agencies? Did you have to start over any kind of pension wise, or were you able to? Did they use like the state pension or anything?
so yeah, I had to. I've had a deferred comp that I've just kept rolling into the next one,
Oh,
but
okay.
when I was working with the sheriff's office, I had the Florida retirement system, so that
Hmm.
was the only one where I can't buy back. But I'll still, I mean, when it's all said and done, I got a couple retirements to where it should be good as long as I don't keep
Cool.
hopping around. I make the joke of this is the last
Yeah,
stop.
yeah. It's
So
got to be, yeah, you got to be the last stop after a little while, but your explanation
yeah,
for it is sound. It makes sense. Kind of, you sometimes you need an entry agency or an agency that you can kind of step over or step use as a stepping stone, and
yeah,
then and your agency now is good, so we won't name it. We'll keep it under wraps just for policy and
yeah.
procedures
I think
aspects.
I think the big thing that for me was when my daughter. So I got three kids.
Hmm.
My daughter when she was 8, and my son when they're about the same years apart as me and my sister. And what made me really put into perspective of like life was seeing them reach the age that me and my sister were when my mom ended up dying, and it was like kind of realizing the bigger picture of like who says we have tomorrow.
Hmm.
And so that's when I kind of made the conscious effort of like, I got to be more intentional with my time with my kids and my family because you never know like when's your last day, especially with our job. I mean, tomorrow something could happen to both of us. Like we really don't
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah, and yeah, for sure. And so you're making sure now that every day means something with them, and that you're knowing that that's one more, two more, three more days that you get to spend with them that you haven't spent with your mom that, what kind of impressions can I make on them? What kind of lessons can I teach them, and, set them up, to be better than us, and which is always
Yep.
a parent's, should be a parent's number one goal, is to make my kids better than I ever was or could have been. Um, so that's awesome. So let me drop one more little commercial, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what, kind of what you're doing today, and kind of what you've molded a lot of this thought into, and stuff. Hey, hey, come here. Come here. No, bring it in real close. I got something for you. Did you subscribe yet? Right down there. Hit that subscribe button and the bell notification, because you got to know when we're going to give you a show. Do it. Go now. Go now. I'm waiting. Come on. Right there. All right, back to the show. I'm back. So, yeah, so now, with all that, kind of like I was saying, with like life experience, and now your 10 years of law enforcement experience as well, what are you rolling this into, or what do you've got to be able to use this, because this is a story that you just jumping on a podcast here and there. You've talked to schools, and you've done some demonstrations, and as far as that goes, but what else to push this out to the world are you doing?
So initially, what started as a small happen chance of speaking at our local like hostage negotiations advanced training that we do. I guess I'll take you back a couple years ago when one of my previous agencies, I was on the crisis negotiations team
Oh,
for
wow.
about 3 years. Yeah, and so when I went through the advanced training for hostage negotiations, the instructor, he was showing PowerPoints, and one of the PowerPoints was my mom's obituary photo, and I ended up telling him, I go, hey, that's my mom, and he goes, up, let's all take a break. He's
Yeah.
realizing like, yeah.
I
And
just
so he's like,
stepped
you
I
okay?
just stepped in something right here. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm good. We can talk about it. So that ended up at the end of
So
the
was
class.
he
I
was he
give
like a local agency? Like, was he like a local
he
agency, maybe either that dealt with it or just utilized that
he
as a training tool?
he was just he was up in like Jacksonville, and I
Hmm.
think he, you know, 30 plus years law enforcement, so he had like a
Oh,
lot of experience. He was around for it, so I think anything that happened, he just kept as like a clip. And
yeah.
ironically, that was one of those. So um, once that happened, a couple years down the road, a different instructor started teaching that class locally, and I got in contact with him, and now I'll guest speak at the hostage negotiations class whenever it's around here, and realizing speaking to it in like a law enforcement standpoint, and also speaking about it, kind of helping get someone what they go through. Um, I figured like, hey, like I want to be able to reach out and kind of talk to more people and reach different people in different aspects of life. Of hey, something happened to you that was traumatic, but you don't have to let that define you. And like I want to know like how you got through it and how you ended up growing from that. So that ended up, we're working on a social media page now. It's Endure with Nick, and we're going to have a podcast coming soon, Endure with Nick podcast. So I'm excited to start branching out and talking to more people of different, stages of life of like, hey, what did you go through, and how did you process it, and like, what are you
Yeah.
doing now? Like, how'd you get through that? Because that saying of you grow through what you go through is, one of those that really hits home for me. So
Yeah, and then you'll find similarities and differences in what people have gone through, and then how they've adjusted to it, or worked through it and stuff. So it can be very powerful and very helpful. So that's cool. So Endure with Nick, I dropped it on the bottom, and it'll be in the description as well. And then hopefully live by the time I drop this at the beginning of October. hopefully live and ready to go. So I encourage everybody to jump over there and check out the Instagram, and then that's how they can kind of follow there, and as well as on LinkedIn. I'll throw that in there too, to sort of stay aware. Um, so, have you ever done any of these kind of like police conferences, or the speaking engagements are generally just training opportunities locally through? Because like I know in South Florida we do CIT, where like every officer has to get CIT trained, which is just crisis intervention training, and we get guest speakers that come through that, for sure. But I mean, I think with your situation, it's definitely hostage, negotiator centric. And I mean, it could almost go into, SWAT guys love to run around and sweat more than negotiators do. So I don't know if they really have any kind of speaking training or classroom training. It's mostly hands on for SWATties, but but for crisis and hostage, depending on what they call it, yeah, your story definitely gives them something to come up with. Because like I was thinking as you're saying it, I'm processing it as a negotiator. All right, exit strategies, handoff strategies. What are some things, like these are things we need to explain to people, because even if it's just a person in crisis by themselves, a barricaded subject or a bad guy, and we're talking them out, we want to explain every detail to the minute detail of what they're going to see and go through as they walk out of that house. Because you do something stupid, not comparing it to your situation, but you do something stupid and walk out with a gun in your hand or whatever, you don't know
Hmm.
how that operator, that SWAT team member is going to react. And we may just have somebody in crisis that we're walking out and we end up shooting them or whatever. So we try to explain that, and I'm sure you learned that in hostage training about exit strategies and explaining how to come out of the house or how to come out of a building, and
Yeah,
what
no,
they're going to deal with.
yeah. Looking back, after going through the training and then being part of the unit, using that to kind of like reassess everything that the suspect was going through, like mentally, you could tell that he wasn't going to end that alive. He was either going to die by cop or suicide. And as far as like with speaking, I haven't done like any conferences yet, but that's going to be the game plan. Get in there. Mainly just been doing trainings, and ironically, a few years back, I ended up one of the trainings I did up in Daytona, and one of the instructors, he was a older guy from Orlando, and he mentioned he was on SWAT, and so I caught him on a break, and I was like, "Hey, were you working at Orlando Police Department when this happened?" And he was like, "Yeah, I was on that call out." He was actually there when it happened. He was the sniper scout at the time, and he remembered it like it was yesterday when he had just left. So back then, a sniper scout would take a picture of what the sniper's looking at, and they would walk that picture back to the command post. And he said, like, as he was walking back, he remembered hearing the shots when my mom was killed. And we ate lunch and we talked. We cried, we prayed. It was
Oh, wow.
you know, it was a real touching moment. Still keep in contact with him to this day. A great guy. Um, and it's just crazy how I didn't realize till getting into law enforcement around here how it kind of changed how we do things, at least in Florida. Now the snipers, they wait till they have facial recognition of having like an actual, this is the suspect. That's who your target is. Instead of shooting through a door when you can only see a hand.
Yeah, a blind shot. Yeah, so there's basically probably a policy now or directives through departments and SWAT teams. Yeah, that
Yeah.
this case in point, you have a lot, you have nothing to gain, or like a 1% chance of positive resolution to gain by just blindly shooting through an opaque object that you can't see. Um,
Hmm.
on what you're hitting, because you don't know. Just like we know in the road and everything, like what's your backdrop, what's your, and these are things that snipers usually think of. And I'm sure I'm sure it's not a great memory for that sniper. And that's amazing that you were able to reconnect with his scout, or his teammate. Um, so it was just, there was a lot stacked up. The scout wasn't there to assist him. We're dealing with antiquated technology, being we couldn't send a, we couldn't transmit over Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or just through a cell phone the picture of what the sniper's looking at. Or
Hmm.
nowadays they probably have a live stream of what each sniper's looking at. um, and those are ways that departments can make decisions, make better decisions, and sometimes fast decisions that need to be made. Wow, that's amazing. That sounds like a good guest for your podcast, is to actually sit down with that guy and
Yeah.
have a conversation with him, on an early podcast episode, just, not to fight, but just to cope and share conversation and share thoughts and experiences about, you know, maybe you can shed some light on back then and answer some of those technology questions, or some of those, what would you say is different 24 years ago, to today. We think 2000, like, wow, this is, turn of the century or something, like but there's a lot less technology, man. You know,
Yeah, definitely.
um,
Like every year I look back, I'm like, it feels like yesterday, but then when I write it down, like 20 years ago, 22, 23, 24, it's like, oh man.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Um, all right. Yeah. You have anything else? Anything else? Any other crazy stories? What would you? I heard this recently on another podcast, and it's a great question. What would you do different, or what would you? What else would you be if you weren't a police officer? Like, if you didn't get into this, what do you think you'd be doing?
If I didn't get into this, I mean, I'd probably, I thought about, like the real estate, just because I always hear I have that nice radio voice too, like something radio host
Yep.
talking. So like
Yeah. Yeah.
I get a mixture of that, and I always feel like I got good energy where I could bring people together. So I'm like, I think I could probably sell a house, or I could be a radio show host. A lot of especially older women hit me with, "You sound like Barry White," and for a while I was like, "Who is Barry White?" But I know who that is now. So
Yeah.
so I
No,
get
no, yeah, yeah.
that.
You have that deep voice. Pre-show, when I was walking around setting something up, and I could hear you talking, and I was like, "Oh boy, all right, look at it. We got some deep bass going on there." So yeah, very
It'll
cool.
still crack.
Yeah,
It'll still crack every once in a while.
yeah, or yell or whatever. If you've
Yeah.
got it, I'm sure it's a good, when you got to get some attention on a scene or something like that. What do you do right now for the police department?
So right now I'm working patrol day shift. So I got three kids, so I can't do nights. Pretty much the game plan. I was a detective before, looking to probably get back into that, and then career goals, still, eventually get on a SWAT team, and then later on get back on CNT when I'm older and in less shape. I don't have to run and gun as much to
Hmm.
talk to somebody on the phone. So mainly
What
just
was that?
been
You said
focusing on,
TNT, or
huh?
what you said? TNT? What is that?
No, no, crisis negotiations team,
Oh,
CNT.
so like some type of. Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
CNT.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
CNT. Yeah,
CNU, CNT, hostage. Yeah, it's
yeah,
everybody uses
yeah.
what kind of name
Different
can they
acronym,
can.
same thing, right? Yeah,
Yeah, same goal, hopefully. So all right, perfect, cool. All right, yeah, 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 especially I'm sure, with family and stuff, with younger kids, it's good to be able to get home on a normal basis. I thought about going back to midnights for like my last year, kind of rack up some, you know, overtime and some money and stuff like that. But I got told by everybody, "You're 42 years old, bro. Midnights is not the same if you haven't been doing it. You've been you've
yeah,
been sleeping a normal, because most, granted, now I wake up sometimes to go work out at 4:20 in the morning, but so I'm definitely, by like 8 o'clock, I'm like, time to go to bed, you know,
yeah,
but it's staying overnight, kudos to those guys because it definitely beats up your body in a different way. And then trying to switch it back on the weekends and get yourself sort of normal to society is harder. It was fun in my 20s, and that was the life that I led, going out at night. But I don't live that life anymore. So it's last
Yeah.
night we were watching a show and we decided to keep binging on the show, and I'm like, it's 12 o'clock. We got to go to bed. So
Yeah, no,
you know
I did about 5 years on nights, and I was looking back. I was like, yo, I can't do that now. And especially learning so much about like sleep and like how your circadian rhythm like really affects like your health. Like I
Yep.
couldn't, especially with the three kids. I'm like, I can't be awake at night like that anymore.
Yeah, and then you're able to be there and support your wife, I think, a bit more with the kids and stuff during those evening hours, or when you're not at work. Whereas if you guys were like flip flopped, and you're taking the kids
Yeah,
during the day and she's sleeping at night, yeah, it's just it doesn't bode well for law enforcement families a lot of times. Some people can make it work, but some people have a tough time making that work, and we end up getting into those situations that we see all too often in law enforcement, with divorces or fighting and stuff like that. And it's just never. It doesn't always end up being a positive thing for sure. All right. Anything else? Anything else you want to add? Otherwise, we can probably wrap this up. I mean, I think you hit on a lot of stuff. So I tried to
yeah. No,
unpack
I
it, but
mean, I know we could go for a minute, but I got the meat and potatoes. I got to say though, because I have to say it out loud, so I know I won't let myself down to doing it. I got my first marathon coming up in a couple months,
oh,
so I'm saying it. I'm saying it here, so the internet knows that I'm going to do it. I got the dad bod, but we've been following a training program, and it's been fun. It sucks, but it's like that necessary sucking of, okay, that sounded weird, but it was
uh-oh. It's like me with the air dicks.
just, yeah, just trying to do hard things, man. You sweat more, bleed less. That's the
Yeah.
game plan. Just trying to always try to find something hard to do and just keep going at it.
Yeah, challenge yourself for sure. It's challenging yourself is a huge thing. That's my wife was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were doing a podcast right after." And I was like, "It's the only time I could get in the gym and hit the gym and then be able to just do the podcast and get it done." So I was like, I don't want to skip
Yep.
the gym. Um, so training for a marathon, especially as a big guy, because how tall are you?
5'11", about
Okay,
two
yeah.
two
So
fifty.
okay. So you're about my height and the same, and a little heavier than I am. And the so how long have you been training for the marathon?
So this one is like a 19-week training program. So I started it end of July, and the race is December 1st. So we're
Okay.
getting there. Over the summer, I was on FMLA with the baby, so I was able to run more. And now just trying to figure out, the work schedule. Like you said, waking up early in the morning. I tell people they'll see me at like 5 in the morning with the stroller pushing one of the babies as I'm trying to get the
Okay.
miles in, or take a lunch break,
Yeah.
try to work out. So it's it's any way of I found a schedule that was like, hey, it's about 3 runs a week, and if I can get that in, like a tempo run, short run, then the long run, just trying to work that in through the schedule. Like I feel like when game day comes, like I just want to get through that without getting any injuries or having any regrets of like, man, I wish I would have ran more without hurting myself. So
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah,
fun.
it's got to be important to work on that, and as well as your recovery, because I know I did a 5K in December last year, and I it was one of the first times I've ever really run the whole thing. I've always been like a run walker, or like when you do, like the mile in high school, and it's like, all right, I'm going to run a mile or run a lap, and I'm going to walk a lap, or it's like you
Yeah,
always got to reward yourself with a walk. But I said I ran with my buddy who's a track coach and a cross country coach, and I was like, all right, Ben, I want to freaking run this whole thing, or not run it, but jog, whatever. Because I
yeah,
think I did it. I don't know. It was a fair time. I think I got third place in my age bracket for the 5K. But whew, I tell you, days after, my legs were shot. They were they were shot. You know, I got muscular legs from like lifting and stuff, but I don't have runner's legs, and they were definitely beat from doing it. So, but it felt good, and I thought I was going to do more of it, but I haven't. You know,
Yeah,
but yeah.
I'm trying to keep moving, man. I'm trying to get to your age, just moving. I banged out 13 miles last week, and I was a little sore, but I was like,
Uh-huh.
hey, this is it sucks. Like I feel it now, sitting on this stool. I'm like, oh man, I can still feel a little
Oh
sore
yeah,
there,
yeah. Well, that's what as the old geezer you keep putting me into the bracket of.
but
I've started trying to do yoga. I downloaded an app, and I'm trying to do that because from early on in my career, I herniated a disc in my lumbar, and I've
mm,
just always dealt with a bad back, a hurt back, and working out helps, and it strengthens the core to add resiliency and everything like that for the lumbar, so it doesn't hurt as bad. But a heavy workout will sometimes, or just the slightest slip up will irritate it, and
yeah,
we do the chiropractor and everything like that. But I was like, I need to get more limber. I need to have my muscles be stretchier than what they are. So that's one of the things that I'm doing now is trying to do this like yoga stretch activity every
mm.
night. So I slack once in a while, but it makes a difference.
I know.
So something for your
I've had a
recovery, maybe.
I've had a chiropractor for a couple of years, and I'm realizing every year I get into my 30s, I get a new doctor. Got a primary, I got a podiatrist, I got a
Yeah.
urologist, I got a dentist. All that. I'm like, okay, I got a whole team here.
Yeah, that's a great point because you're right. I'm adding specialists every time. As a cardiologist, I got to do
Yeah,
this. I got to do that. Yeah, yeah. The urologist. Oh boy. Yeah. No, no. Yeah. You definitely add more doctors than just going to your pediatrician that you used to go to for many years,
yeah.
and do that. So, all right, man. Well, awesome, excellent conversation. Thank you very much for coming on. If you ever want to throw anything else out, feel free to come on, and we'll get you on again. And I appreciate it. And kudos to all the work that you're doing, and being able to help help people that have gone through a traumatic a tragedy such as yours, be able to really process it and be a shining example for um, you know, what you can be. So thank you very much for that. And thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Check out Nick Hall. All the links will be in the description or in the bios on the different channels. So check it out. Stick around, Nick, and then we'll chat after.
Calling all units, calling all units. Donut Shop has a fresh dozen. Go ahead and take a 1040.